So as we're setting up, my name is Courtney Gutierrez and I'm here with Domestic Violence Solutions. I'm here as the Teen and Volunteer Program Coordinator, and I was also previously I was a client advocate at our emergency shelter. So there I provided case management as well as peer counseling. I would answer out to 911 law enforcement calls for domestic violence, and we would meet with victims at the scene of the crime, or even to the emergency room if that's where we needed to be. So we're setting up my DB English short, yeah, there you go, the PowerPoint. But I'm not a fan of using PowerPoint, so I'm just going to kind of talk, because I would rather this be a discussion rather than me talking at you. So to kind of go over what domestic violence is, it doesn't always have to be just physical. It is the use of power and control over somebody else to manipulate them into doing what another person wants them to do or to change their being or their self. Domestic violence is not just, like I said, physical. It can be emotional, financial, it can be cultural, it could be religious type of abuse. What's different is, you're fine, thank you. The difference is that there's this stereotype or this misconception that it needs to be physical to get help. That's where it's different for us. In terms of the law, maybe yes, there does need to be physical marks, or there needs to be some sort of evidence that something happened, but for us, you can give us a call and we can help you through whatever it may be. You can be experiencing emotional abuse and we will help. We will help you find a safe place, because you never know when it will increase into a physical altercation or it's just not safe for an individual anymore. In terms of teens, which is why we're here for the youth, I work with the youth constantly. I go to juvenile probation and I hold workshops there bi-weekly. I run the support groups for the teens at our emergency shelter, as well as our transitional housing, which I'll get into later. And it's astonishing what they already know about domestic violence. Domestic violence is not just between a married couple. It can be dating violence. Dating violence is happening now in our youth. 14 to 24 is when somebody is most likely to fall into a dating violence situation, meaning that as they grow older, it may become a pattern in their future relationships. So that's kind of interesting, because a lot of times parents don't always know exactly what's going on in their child's relationship, or they may feel, oh, it's just a high school relationship, it's just young love, you know, it's just a phase, they'll get over it. But it's not true. Sometimes it does perpetuate into a pattern. So when a parent sees their child texting constantly, or upset that their phone gets taken away and that their boyfriend or girlfriend will be upset that they can't talk to them, that's a red flag to kind of look out for. When your child is not hanging out with their friends anymore and just spending all of their time with their partner, that's a red flag to look out for, because they may be losing themselves in this relationship and kind of defining themselves as that relationship. So in our workshops and in our school presentations, what I bring up is the definition, what it means, the different types of abuse that may occur, but also where they learn it from. As Yesenia was talking about earlier, youth they learn from those around them. It's learned behaviors from their parents, from their friends, from their teachers, from anyone that they just might have passed and had an influence on them. They learn. They're sponges. So when it comes down to, if they're in a relationship where they're not spoken to in a respectful way, if they see their friend going through the same thing, they may think that it is normal when it's not. But because those around them are going through it, then they think that they should be going through it, and if they're not going through it, then something isn't right. In terms of joking, I've heard a lot of jokes about media people, or people in the media such as Chris Brown, Rihanna, that have experienced dating violence, and it becomes a joke amongst the teens. I just had an incident, it was kind of a nice little teacher's moment for me, where I had a student at one of my high school presentations who fell asleep during my presentation. And I just thought, okay, maybe it might be hitting a little too close to home, so it might be disassociating from the subject. I didn't take it too personal, but then I had him about a month later in my juvenile probation workshop. In that workshop, I had the same presentation, and we were talking about the Chris Brown Rihanna and how he came about the presentation or the subject. It was kind of in a disrespectful, maybe kind of not maybe the best way to approach it. It was a joke. He joked about why she deserved it, is what he had said. And I had to kind of break it down to him and say why she didn't and why nobody deserves it, and how that it's not okay to put, you know, physical marks onto somebody else or to use physical actions against somebody to get your way, or if you're angry, to use physical actions. And he took it in, and he continued on. We continued on with the workshop, and he would ask questions, and that was that. I just recently had him again in one of my workshops, and so he's becoming an expert on my workshops. And another student made kind of a similar comment as he had in the workshop before, and the student corrected the other student, which was awesome because that means he's learning, right? So when you are introducing these types of things and breaking down the jokes that we may have when it comes to violence or sexual assault or anything like that, then you are making a difference. You may not see the difference right when it happens, but it does happen. Because then now somebody's going to think about how what they say affects other people. So like I said before, domestic violence is a learned behavior. It is not caused by genetics. So just because a mother or a father was an abuser doesn't mean that automatically out of the womb somebody else is going to be an abuser. It's something that they learn with time. Or they may fall into becoming a victim, because being a victim is also learned. It is not an illness. Violence is a choice that the abuser makes. And substance and alcohol use can increase abuse, but it doesn't cause abuse. And it is found in every level of society and culture. So domestic violence does not discriminate against anybody. There is a stereotype of who is a victim of domestic violence, but that stereotype is nothing, because we see it all. We get called out to every area of the city. We get called out to every person that is represented in our population here. So, as I said, physical abuse is a crime, and it does have its own penal code, and in which the police can be called and arrest if necessary. So there's a lot of reasons why an abuser will feel that it's not their fault that they are perpetuating this action, and they may use it, you know, I wasn't loved enough as a child, or this is how my parents showed love, or whatever it may be, or you knew that that made me mad, so that's what happens, you should have gotten out of my way, or you know, when I get drunk, this is how I act. It's all an excuse. If they really wanted to change, they could. Just like when a victim is ready to leave, they can leave with the help and support from others. So these are some common abusive behaviors. So there's verbal and emotional, which is something that we hear about often. So the screaming, name-calling, put-downs, blaming, accusing. Emotional, so the controlling, the gaslighting. Cheating can be emotional because you're kind of playing around with somebody's emotions that are tied to you, but yet kind of discarding them to interact in a romantic way towards somebody else. There's manipulation, intimidation, and suicidal threats. If you leave me, I will kill myself. I will hurt myself. If I can't live without you. And those are used a lot to manipulate somebody to say, I'll stay because if I don't, they'll really hurt themselves and that will be my fault. If that does occur, then an individual without the background can't help them. So if you really feel that that's a serious action that may happen, or you just aren't comfortable with the situation, call 911, because suicidal threats are serious, and then they will take it on. You had a question? Gaslighting, it's to kind of put the light under somebody, to say, I'm going to do this, I'm not, I'm going to do this, kind of make somebody feel kind of crazy in a sense, or to make them manipulate the situation.
Question the reality.
Right. There you go. To question the reality. So physical is illegal. I think we all know what a physical action is, so we're not really going to get into that. Sexual too. That's where a lot of times we kind of coincide with Rape Crisis Center, because there is sexual abuse that happens in dating violence or domestic violence situations. Marital rape happens. The coercion to say, if you loved me, you would do this, or if you don't, then I'm just going to tell everybody you did it anyways. That happens a lot in youth type of situations. Stalking, cyber stalking, and harassment, that's all illegal as well. When somebody constantly messages somebody, text messages somebody, checks their location in terms of online. Using iPhones, you can find somebody's location using their iPhone, or even on Facebook you can see where somebody's last login is. So those are all security options that you do have to watch for and look for. And you have the ability to turn off those kind of GPS tracking. So, like I said, it's power and control, and the cycle of violence kind of keeps somebody in. So the cycle of violence is 3 parts. There's the tension building phase, where an individual feels like they're walking on eggshells. They feel that they need to agree with everything that their partner is saying because they don't want to ensue an argument of any sort, or they just are scared of what might happen next. And the abuser at this time is either insulting them, criticizing them, putting them down. There's that feeling that something will happen if they don't de-escalate it, in terms of the victim de-escalating it. And then comes the explosion. That's usually when the abusive act occurs. And then that's when, a lot of times unfortunately, is when I meet my clients. Is because that's when the police are called. And it's not always because they call the police, it's because neighbors call the police from hearing everything that happens. After that is the honeymoon. The honeymoon is the I'm sorry's, the I love you's, the gifts, the I'll change if you give me another chance, I'll go, to counseling, I'll do what I need to do. And then the partner or the victim saying, I'm going to give them a chance. They didn't know, they were drunk, I understand, or even feeling that need to stay because of there may be pride that might be keeping them away from leaving, or maybe there's children involved. It would be too much to uproot the children or to break away that family unit. Or there's the family saying, give them another try, so that the familial influence that might partake in that, or cultural or religious influence as well. So the cycle of violence, like I said, keeps you dependent on the abuser. Being overjealous is not a sign of romance. That happens a lot in high school, where the partners will say, you can't hang out with any other guys, or you can't hang out with any other girls, like what are you doing, or hanging out, checking the text messages, wondering who you're talking to. And a lot of times the partner or the victim will say, oh, that means that they love me because they care. They care who I talk to, or, and it's not true, that's control over, and that's hard to introduce to a youth because it's happening to other people around them as well. I've had a friend tell me that if asked where their partner is and they don't know, then other people are saying, you should know, they're your partner. And it's they're an independent person, they can do what they want to do. That's healthy, because you're not completely coinciding yourself and meshing yourself into one being. You're still 2 different people, but you're in a partnership. So like I said, that's the cycle of violence. There's kind of like a picture of what it looks like. And the power and control, so they can use intimidation, manipulation, they can use children, finances, housing options, they can use immigration status as a way of keeping somebody with them. That we get a lot of, if you don't do this, then I won't turn your immigration papers in, or you can't be a citizen because you're not here legally, or I'll call immigration on you if you don't do this. That's used a lot, and they don't know their options that are out there for them. Minimizing or denying and blaming, so saying, I didn't mean it like that, you just took it way too far, you're too sensitive, that was all a joke, you're crazy, that's not what I said. So manipulating their words or putting words in your mouth to say that that's what you meant by saying that, not taking into consideration how you feel. So if you say, that made me feel uncomfortable that you did this, you're being too sensitive. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. I'll take that into consideration the next time that happens. So how many people have had a situation or seen somebody in a situation and said, why don't they just leave? If they can just leave, or they keep going back to them, that it's their own fault, right? We hear that a lot. The reason why they don't leave is complicated. It's a simple question, but it's a complicated answer. There may be children involved. They may still be completely in love with the person because there is that emotional tie. There's religious ties. Maybe their religion doesn't believe in divorce, or their culture doesn't believe in divorce or believe in leaving somebody that you have a child with, even if you're not married. There's people such as friends that influence them to stay, family that influences them to stay. They're financially dependent on the person. Yeah, it's kind of that Stockholm syndrome, kind of, where they can feel bad for the person that they're with, even though they know what the person is doing to them isn't right, kind of. So the fear, guilt, love attachment. So the religion expectations, shame, lack of support. So sometimes families just don't want to help them, or saying, you put yourself in this hole, you're on your own, kind of. And so the effects of DV, there's, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so basically what I would want to leave here is to be there for somebody if they need you. To just say, I'm here for you. I can help you in whatever way you need necessary, or I can help you find somebody to help you, which is where we can come in. You can give them our crisis line. So our crisis line is 24 hours every day of the week and weekends, and that's 805-964-5245. We also have 2 crisis lines, one in Santa Maria and one in Lompoc. And we also can help give referrals for restraining orders, or to point you in the right direction for that. So we have an emergency shelter, which is 45 days, where people can come to if they are in need of homes. And then after the 45 days, if everything goes the way and we have the right way, and we have the room, we have transitional housing as well. And that's an 18-month program where we can continue providing support, case management, counseling. And then on Mondays, we have a Spanish and English support group at CALM. From 6 to 7 is the Spanish, and 7 to 8 is the English support group, open to the community. We help them prioritize their needs. So if they are in need of finding a job, then we prioritize finding childcare as well. So which is where we refer out. Mm-hmm.
Is this for like families or individuals?
Families and individuals. Women. We bring in women to the shelter, women and children. So it can be an individual woman, or it could be a woman and her children.
Since this is a 4-part series, Kat, maybe we can work with Courtney Gutierrez and get that and fold it into one of our next presentations. So can we give her a big hand?